Once again, welcome to the course. I created this screencast to just give you a quick overview, a video overview of 102 Western Civilization 2 in this course that you'll be taking, because this course is really set up differently from probably other history courses that you've taken. Because we're talking about a period that is large, between 1500 to about the year 2000, there's just simply too much for us to study. So instead, we're gonna condense this a little bit, and I'm gonna explain a little bit more about the course and sort of how the course runs. First of all, if you look at this image, it's something that everybody can recognize, and it's, when you look at it in this perspective, New York City is pretty interesting. But most of us are so used to this image that it doesn't really faze us, and it's really not until we start investigating that this image becomes more profound. But the biggest thing is that it's fascinating that we can look at this image and not just be in awe and not just drop everything we do to study this, that we've actually become so used to this society that it really doesn't even fade us. In fact, most people don't even notice how bizarre their world really is. And this course is a great study in exactly how our world came to be. Because if you look at this is a very artificial, human-created society. I mean, you have skyscrapers, everything's paved. This is a very manufactured society. And in human civilization, we actually do today live in the most artificial civilization that's ever existed. If you think about it, we base our entire day on an artificial, human-made clock. We go to work and typically have a very employment that is distanced from the natural environment. In fact, we find it novel today to actually go hiking or to go into the natural environment, that is something that you do for leisure. Whereas most of human civilization, your life has been dictated by nature, and artificialness has sort of struggled against this. In fact, today we're actually we're having a big problem with this, that our human artificialness is actually overcoming nature to an extent where it's becoming dangerous. And so this course will allow us to sort of take a look at how our world came to being and exactly how bizarre our world is. Now, for most of humanity, this picture would have looked normal. This picture would have been acceptable. You vaguely would have recognized that there's plowing occurring, beasts of burden are pulling this, and that there's farming taking place. And so for most of human civilization, if you take a look, lives have been dictated more about agriculture and more about seasons and being in tune with nature. And so in the 20th century is really when you see this dramatic change away from this rural, agricultural, natural lifestyle to an artificial one. And so you can see in each age of human history just how important agriculture was, because these images tend to dominate a lot of the evidence that's left behind. And humans have been greatly affected by sort of natural conditions in the environment. And so in this period, we're really going to take a look, because this all changes. We went from having a population that would have anywhere from 80 to 90% of humans devoted to agriculture to today, where in the United States we really only have about 2% of our population that's devoted to agriculture, while the rest, 98% of us, are devoted to something industrial or something artificial. And so this class then is going to seek to focus on this question of how have we gotten here. And so history is relevant, but more so, not so much for the reason that history is repeated. And one thing that I will restate over and over in this course is that history really does not repeat itself. It's sort of a famous cliche that gets put out there, but we'll never go back to exactly living in previous societies. It's impossible to do that. We may have some vague similarities to events that have happened in the past, but ultimately that these are very distinct alien societies, and we need to treat the past like they are, because if you draw parallels between today and past societies, you're really overgeneralizing, and you're not doing justice to exactly how separate and distinct these civilizations are. So the big question that we're going to look at is, how have we gotten here? How have we come to view this? And these images are all 20th and early 21st century images, but to go essentially from all the way from agriculture and these images of very natural living and growing food to suddenly this society is really bizarre and intriguing. And so because of each of these pictures represents a massive idea and a massive change in human civilization, we're going to divide this up a little bit more. And in our class, you're going to choose a specific question. And I love this cartoon because this is probably how you've been taught history in the past. Calvin is from Calvin and Hobbes, and Calvin's asked the question, when did the Pilgrims land at Plymouth Rock? And he writes 1620. And then he proceeds to write, as you can see, I've memorized this utterly useless fact long enough to pass a test question. I now intend to forget it forever. You've taught me nothing except how to cynically manipulate the system. Congratulations. They say the satisfaction of teaching makes up for the lousy pay. And so in the past, you've probably been taught about sort of a random series of events that you've tried to had to make sense out of. Instead, this class is going to be more focused. So rather than giving you a whole variety of information that really doesn't seem to be connected, we're going to streamline you from the start of this course. And from the start of this course, we're going to ask specific questions. But where we should start at first is, what exactly is Western civilization? Because this term changes like everything else in the previous 500 years. Originally, when the term Western civilization was coined, it was defined as the known West. And so the known West at that point was simply the old world, Africa, Asia, and Europe. And so if you look at a map of Africa, Asia, and Europe, what they knew of the world in 1500, and really about the year 1450, is that Europe was in the West. And so therefore they classified it as Western civilization. However, today, Western civilization means more than just one region. So where it was specifically located in one aspect of the globe prior to this, today Western civilization is more of a culture than a location. And so Western civilization is any culture that sort of follows the Western ethic of what we consider the West. And so it's really any place that Western civilization has deeply influenced them. So for example, when they discover the Americas and the English come and settle and colonize, and you have the creation of the United States, well, it's not in the West anymore. In fact, it's in a completely new hemisphere than what they originally knew. It follows Western culture. And so Western culture is a difficult thing to term because Western culture is vague and it means a lot of things. But today the culture that we live in is considered Western culture. And it includes aspects like scientific education. It includes aspects like having liberal governments, either democracies or republics or something of that like. It also includes consumerism, industry, capitalism as an economic structure. And so Western civilization is a big, broad definition that your book will help you define. But it's any culture that essentially resembles Europe and the United States and follows a lot of those similar ethics. So Japan, for example. Japan before 1950 is not a Western civilization. It's an Eastern civilization and doesn't share the same ethic. But if you look at Japan in the 20th century, it is Western. It's considered a Western civilization because they do have modern armies, they have technological advancement, and a whole variety of things that we would consider the Western ethic. And so Western goes from the beginning of our period to becoming about location to today where it's more cultural than anything else. So if you take a look at a place like, let's say, Sudan, the Sudan. In Africa, we don't consider that Western civilization because they really don't follow, their society is really different from ours. In northern Sudan, for example, you have more religious education than scientific education. In Africa, you tend to have more authoritarian governments than liberal governments. And so Western civilization is this broad term, but essentially it's any place that somewhat resembles ours or mostly resembles ours. So knowing this then, we're going to focus on some more specific questions within Western civilization. And these are the 6 questions that you're going to be allowed to focus on in this class. And you're going to choose one. So you're going to explore this entire period and location through one of these questions. And so it's going to help sort of give order and limits to your thinking about this period. So there are 6 broad topics. The first is gender. And so gender is extremely influential and changes drastically in 1500 to 2000. If you think about it, women are seen as trophies at the beginning of this period to where in the 20th century they have rights to vote. They've essentially become nearly equal citizens. And so gender changes dramatically. Also natural deaths. Natural deaths are, and that's in quotes, because this is anything that's sort of not human caused by nature. And so that includes a whole variety of infectious diseases, for example, natural disasters. Violent deaths, this would be human-caused deaths, technology, government, and international influence. And so all of these Western civilizations then, questions, you'll be able to choose one to explore this period through. Now, when you finally select your question, what you'll need to do then is apply it throughout the whole course. So, for example, your exams are going to be based upon the question that you selected in the period that we're studying. So, for example, if it's the first half of this course, one of your exams will be how did gender change in the early 1700s? Or it might be, how did gender change as a result of the Industrial Revolution? And so your one question then is important to choose the one that you're most interested in, because it's going to help shape how you study for this period. There are two separate options for taking an exam. One is a timed exam in the testing center, where you'll have 75 minutes and you're allowed to bring in a sheet of handwritten notes, and essentially you'll just create a full essay then within the 75-minute exam. Or you can do the take-home exam, and this is going to be more polished, where you can include anything from the course, any notes, books, or documents. You can have that open as you craft your essay. But because my expectations are a little bit higher, you need to include quotes and a whole variety of things, and the course policies will talk a little bit more about that. But there are two exams for this course and one final exam, and the final exam is going to be where you bring everything in from the course. And so this will be a formal essay that is, you already will know the question that's going to be posed to you in the final exam, because that will be your overarching question that you select. And so the course policies will elaborate more on that as well as we delve into. So to continue with this overview, one way that you can understand how to stay on top of the assignments and the topics that we'll be exploring in this class is that the news items are probably the most important. When you first log into this class, you'll want to go to it'll take you right to the news items, and this will list any extremely important information, upcoming due dates, or any encapsulating information. And so make sure that you do go to the news items and read those when they pop up. The course schedule, though, is another really important document, because this will actually list out exactly what you need to complete to accomplish that week. So this will then essentially be the course, and this should give you a brief overview. You'll be able to read more of the policies for this course in the whole section of Getting Started, but this will sort of give you a quick overview of how this course differs from other history courses that you may have taken.